What do police officers, cabbies, rappers, and grandmas all have in common? They all share a special place in their heart for this car. The Chevy Caprice, specifically the 4th generation. This car, based on tech from the 1970s, was on the chopping block from day one. It received very harsh reviews from critics when it was released, and yet it still managed to win Motor Trend's Car of the Year in 1991. And in the process, became a cultural icon. But how? Well, here it is. This car goes by many names. The Last of the Dinosaurs, the Beached Whale, the Bubble, or my personal favorite, the Upside Down Bathtub. Perhaps that's why I named her Bathsheba. This car was heavily mocked by skeptics, criticized for being too antiquated and old-fashioned for the 1990s.
I don't like this car at all, I have to be honest with you. Fans will regard it as an oversized barge. I just hate the concept of this thing. The appearance, it looks like a beluga whale with 4 wheels.
Misses include a dated suspension design.
I just can't stand the way this thing looks.
The car looked like an unfinished artist's conception.
It has terribly soft suspension. It wallows through the corners.
And a gauge cluster that's too sparse for a modern car.
The brakes are really bad, as we'll probably get into later. There's not enough power. I just don't like anything about it.
To be fair, this chastisement wasn't entirely unmerited. With the exception of only minor tweaks here and there, the chassis, drivetrain, and all the underpinnings were essentially unchanged since 1977. General Motors' initial plan was to axe the Caprice altogether after 1990 and replace it with something completely new and more modern. But in typical cost-cutting fashion, upper management decided instead to just replace the ultra-rectangular body with something more rounded. Perhaps influenced by the brand new Ford Taurus, they came up with this, replacing the previous moniker Box Chevy with the Bubble. The change from the 3rd to the 4th generation of Caprice was so drastic that it's hard to describe using mere words. So instead, I'll use pictures. 3rd generation Box Caprice, 4th generation Bubble Caprice. But underneath that sleek new round body remained the same 15-year-old technology from years past. Critics had a field day, but not everyone was so pessimistic. Motor Trend gave it its coveted 1991 Car of the Year award.
Motor Trend's Domestic Car of the Year.
Motor Trend Car of the Year.
The Motor Trend Car of the Year.
Motor Trend Car of the Year.
The Motor Trend's Domestic Car of the Year, 1991.
Chevrolet managed to sell over 500,000 Caprices from 1991 to 1996. And that's not even taking into account all the Oldsmobile Vista Cruisers and Buick Roadmasters that were built on basically the same platform. But out of those, roughly half were sold as fleet vehicles. When you think about New York City, what comes to mind? For a lot of people, it's this, the New York cab. And they're always Crown Vics, aren't they? The Crown Vic truly has a place in our mind as the quintessential taxi. But it wasn't always that way. Before the Crown Vic, it was this. The Caprice was undoubtedly the favorite taxi of the 1990s. GM would sell you a package from the factory with meter included, taxi light included, ready to go. New Caprice taxis started popping up all over the nation. But it wasn't only the cabbies that fell for the voluptuous curves of the new bubble Caprice. The police also wanted a piece of the action. Police officers across North America quickly became acquainted with their new police cars. The bigger, sleeker, rounder Caprice was perfect. The big V8 made it ideal for highway patrol, cruising long hours on the highway. The comfortable couch sofas for seats made it ideal for late night stakeouts. In fact, General Motors sold a package from the factory where you could option for bigger brakes, stiffer suspension, transmission cooler, a digitally accurate speedometer, but most importantly, you could opt for the 5.7 V8. There were so many of these as taxis and police cars that it didn't take long for an entire sub-market to sprout up overnight. If you beat up your Caprice in the line of duty, you could replace a fender or pretty much any body panel, and there were dedicated shops to do it. That's how many of these there were. But what about the other half that weren't sold as fleet vehicles? Well, a lot of them were sold to young families who loved the size of the vehicle and the seating for 6. A lot of them ended up in the hands of the elderly, for obvious reasons. But there was a very small subculture who couldn't get enough of the bubble Caprice. Donks.
Now let me welcome everybody to the Wild Wild West, a state that's untouchable like Elliot Ness. The track hits your eardrum like a to your chest, like a vest for you in the city of. We in that sunshine state where the bomb be, the state where you never find.
So, the Caprice was becoming more and more popular. But what happened next immortalized it. Hollywood. Only a fraction of aspiring actors make it in Tinseltown. More often than not, hopes and dreams are crushed in the cutthroat industry that is film. The Caprice made it big. Maybe a little too big. Thousands upon thousands of these were sacrificed for our entertainment. It's reminiscent of innocent men being sent to the Colosseum for those bloodthirsty onlookers to feast their eyes upon. But as much as I'd love to blame the death of the Caprice on Michael Bay, it was actually this that killed it. Yep, the Chevy Lumina. That was the somewhat lackluster replacement that General Motors thought would be a good way to put the Caprice out of commission. But I guess it's not all the Lumina's fault. It's yours. In the 90s, market demand shifted from big sedans to SUVs. Consumers no longer wanted to be seen in Grandma's Caprice, but they wanted something a little bit more sensible. When 20.4 cubic feet of trunk space and seating for 6, or even 8 in the wagon, was no longer good enough for keeping up with the Joneses, buyers turned to the practicality of the SUV. By the end of its run, Caprice sales had slowed so much that GM converted the plant where Caprices were made to build Suburbans and Tahoes. Love it or hate it, the GM B-Body has gone down in history as a hero. Personally, I love a good B-Body. Maybe it's because I'm nostalgic for the good old days. This isn't your dad's Buick, it's my dad's. I spent a huge chunk of my childhood right there in the back seat. For a family of 6, the Roadmaster estate had plenty of seating for everybody, with slightly more upscale leather seats. And yet, as the youngest, I always found myself exiled to the backwards facing seat. Don't get me wrong, I loved making faces at unsuspecting traffic as a kid. This 92 Roadmaster estate is based on the same platform as this Caprice, but with a larger 5.7 V8, extra chrome, and of course, wood trim. Now today, a wagon in this kind of shape is a sound investment as prices are steadily rising. But what can a poor guy like me do? He can buy himself a Caprice off of grandma, like I did, if you can manage to find one.